Hey, great to have you here. So back today with another Yellowjackets episode review. This one for episode 4, titled 12 Angry Girls and 1 Drunk Travis. Not really sure the titling reason for that one because we obviously have angry girls. I'm not sure the drunk side of things for Travis. So let me know your thoughts there. Is it because Travis is kind of checked out and that's why we're calling him drunk, but not really sure why we're calling him drunk Travis here. For this review, we're going to follow a similar format here, talking about the two timelines separately with the adults and the teenagers, giving some pros and cons, then an overall episode rating at the end. As a reminder, if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Now on to the episode breakdown, this time starting off with the teenager storyline. So we start the episode off with the girls bringing the coach back to camp, and when they get there, Natalie urges them to give the coach a chance and have a trial. Fittingly, we have the group kind of say, who's going to be the defense attorney for the coach at this point? And they all kind of look at Misty, and Misty's like, I'm not going to do it, and they're like, you have to do it. So fittingly, we get Misty as the defense attorney here. We have a brief scene where we have Akilah talking to Lottie about the visions from the prior episode and really buying into the wilderness theory. Then separately, we have Misty get pretty aggressive with the coach about the cabin burning down, but he continues to deny it. And suddenly we get a shift here from Misty, really buying into the coach and willing to defend him at this point. And she has her very eccentric self here as far as demonstrating the kind of back and forth quirkiness as far as I'm going to aggressively come at the coach. Then suddenly, oh, I love the coach. I'm definitely going to defend you. So a little bit all over the place with her. The next teenager scene, we jump straight to the trial here. So they're kind of formalizing the rules as they go. Things such as swearing Mari in. And we have a pretty cool transition here from the prosecuting attorney played by Ty, switching over to Misty, the defense, wrapping around Mari's head. We get more testimonies, Misty questioning Shauna about the cabin fire, saying she could have been spiteful about Natalie being the leader. Then we have Ty question Shauna, trying to pitch the coach as a bad guy. We then move on to Lottie being questioned. Misty presents to her the culprit could be anybody who disagreed with the prayer circles, right? And at this specific moment, for some reason, I'm thinking Travis sticks out to me as being potentially the culprit for the cabin fires. He, for some reason, comes across as feeling guilty here, and I thought maybe because Natalie wants being the leader, Travis could be spiteful of that. Although Travis lives into adulthood, so that's probably a case against him being the fire starter because they would have to probably not find out who did the fire if it winds up being Travis. And while Misty's questioning Lottie and saying it could have been anybody who did this, she even says, oh, it could have even been Crystal, which obviously Misty knows that Crystal's dead. We then have Shauna tell Ty that Natalie knew where the coach was hiding this entire time and to bring it up in questioning, which Ty then asks Natalie to come to the stand. During that questioning, we have Ty call out Natalie for knowing the coach's location. Misty then looks at Shauna, knowing that she blabbed here. All the girls kind of start arguing, but then we have Misty call the coach to the stand. So we have the coach starting off pretty honest here and saying he didn't really love his job, and Misty's really hoping he shows some positivity towards them. Eventually, the coach comes around to saying he liked coaching them and liked them rising to the occasion as underdogs. He then gives some past examples of how he would have hurt the girls if he truly wanted to. He then admits to being a coward and apologizes to the girls for leaving them and really praises their survival instincts. In this scene, we cut to Akilah in the crowd and she's like petting a bunny. Feels a little bit ridiculous that that's happening. I don't know if you want to say the wilderness is just allowing this to take place because a wild bunny no way would let themselves be pet by anybody. But either way there, we have the coach really give a compelling closing statement. We then finally get to the jury vote, and they have to have a 2/3 vote to have a verdict here. And we have 6 people vote innocent, so they wind up having to vote over and over again. Eventually, Shauna bullies this one girl into voting guilty, and then more among the group start to vote guilty until they wind up reaching 2/3. And at this moment, I feel like Shauna is the absolute worst. I'm not really sure if we're supposed to view her as likable in any capacity. Throughout the trial, it feels pretty obvious from the viewer side of things that the coach is innocent, unless they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes, but feels like the coach is definitely innocent. And we have Shauna being very adamant against the coach, saying he's guilty, we have to kill him. So she's just the absolute worst in the scene. She winds up getting embraced by Melissa before walking away. And then we close out the trial with having Travis show Lottie this weird sacrifice drawing that he has. So that closes out the teenager storyline. Then shifting over to the adults, we start things off with Shauna and Jeff at this auto shop, where the person there is pretty much telling her the car just had some issues. It wasn't something that was tampered with, it was just something that kind of naturally happens. And this pretty much proves that Misty was innocent, but Shauna is still reluctant to believe that. We quickly shift over to Lottie, who's at the bank. She gets a phone call from Ty about previously in the last season saying the wilderness thanks them for the sacrifice that they made, and Lottie pretty much blows her off here. We then cut to Jeff and Shauna at home, and Jeff's trying to do a lot of good things here to kind of boost his karma rating within the universe. Things like donate or volunteer. He even talks about going to find this missing cat at one point, which we'll come back to later. We then shift over to Ty and Van, who buy a deck of cards and put this queen on the ground, hoping to see if someone's going to pick it up as a sign from the wilderness. Some random guy winds up coming over and picking it up. I'm not really sure why he would do that. It's just a queen from a deck of cards. Why he would be interested in picking that up? I'm not really sure there. Hopefully they explain that because there's no real reason to do that. It's not like it's even a penny on the ground or any kind of money that he can get value from. He just picks up the queen and walks along his merry way. We then cut back to Shauna and Jeff, who are going to a volunteer opportunity, conveniently at Misty's job. Feels super coincidental here. Not really sure I buy that, but we're going along with the story. Misty's, of course, outside and approaches their car to confront Shauna. Jeff explains to Misty that they're there to volunteer, and then Misty kind of realizes she'll get to boss around Shauna and is super excited about that. We then fast forward to them volunteering. We have Jeff, who's helping out with bingo, and the members there really love Jeff, way over the guy who was originally doing the bingo. Meanwhile, separately, we have Misty and Shauna, who are continuing to aggressively yell at each other. And here's where we get that trailer scene where we have Misty stab Shauna in the back, but we find out here it's just Misty's imagination. She really wants to stab Shauna, but instead she winds up just barging off. We then briefly cut to Lottie, who's practicing an apology in front of the mirror, and I'm wondering at this point, why is she apologizing? Who's she apologizing to? Not really sure there. And then back at the retirement home, we have Shauna get locked in the freezer, and she winds up seeing a ghost Jackie in there with her. We cut back to Ty and Van, who have followed this guy who picked up that card, and they wind up approaching the guy's door, and they see that the door's unlocked, and Ty's like, we need to go in and take care of this. But Van's opinion is, why can't we just enjoy our time together and just focus on that instead? Eventually, Ty's like, all right, we won't go in and kill this guy. Meet me in the park in an hour. I have a separate plan. We then cut back to Jeff, who's still with the bingo group, and he continues to be a major hit there. And then cutting over to Shauna in the freezer, we have this fake ghost Jackie really criticizing her. It felt very similar to Dexter New Blood, if you've watched that show, to Deb's ghost criticizing Dexter, really hammering him for being a bad person. It also felt kind of fitting here that they were in the freezer together because Jackie obviously froze to death. Eventually, Jeff's friend from bingo winds up coming in the nearby room and hearing that Shauna's in the freezer and letting her out. As expected, Shauna thinks Misty's the one that locked her in, but she goes to the front desk and realizes that Misty's been gone for a couple hours, so it couldn't have been her. We then cut to Shauna at home, and Jeff comes in, and Shauna has a cat, and Jeff's like, is that the cat from the flyer? Obviously, earlier I talked about Jeff wanting to do good things and find the missing cat, and Shauna's like, no, Jeff, that cat's dead, but the owners don't have to know that, so she's trying to do good things, but kind of doing sketchy things to do good things, so she's kind of slowly trying to be a better person, but still not quite doing it right, and Jeff's like, all right, fine, you tried your best here, I guess. The cat does look kind of like the flyer cat. We then cut to Ty and Van at the park, and Ty is trying to give Van the perfect date essentially here, wanting to just grab a pretzel with her and take a carriage through the park. But then Ty realizes that Van's shaking here, and I think in some fashion, Ty's thinking to herself, I really want to kill somebody to keep Van alive longer. We then close out the episode with Misty on her typical forum boards, just exploring what's going on with her online community, and she sees a photo of some incident, but it's blurred out. And at the same time, she gets a text from Walter saying something that happened to Lottie and really trying to comfort her for that. Then she winds up clicking on the photo, and we realize in the photo, Lottie is shown dead there. And then we zoom in on that photo and see it's an active crime scene where Lottie appears to be dead at the bottom of a staircase. So that kind of closes the episode out, leaving us with more mystery going forward. As far as listing some pros for this episode, the first one being I'm glad to have Jeff back for this episode. He really provides a lot of levity, and historically is really enjoyable to have on screen. He even makes Shauna tolerable and pretty funny in some instances as well. Second pro, I really like the trial format here. It made the teenager plot pretty interesting, and since we don't fully know what happens to Coach, it keeps a little intrigue there. And then number 3, both teenager and adult Misty were strong characters that I really sided with throughout this episode. Now jumping over to the con side of things for the episode, the first one being kind of the biggest one for me personally. Both the trial ending and Shauna's character was not a direction I enjoyed watching. I'm really hoping something different happens with the coach, and I'm really hoping they make Shauna more enjoyable to be around because she's obviously a staple of the season. She's kind of the main character, but thus far, both teenager and adult Shauna are pretty miserable to be around. And I assume they're trying to make us feel that way because it seems pretty apparent to me. I imagine other people are feeling the same way. Let me know down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Shauna? Are you liking her? Are you disliking her as much as I am? But I just feel like she's the worst person ever, and I kind of want her to fail across the board. Second con of the episode, it seems like we ended the episode with even more questions than we began it with. Even the ending of the episode ends with another mystery with Lottie dying. Did she wind up dying to save Van? Not really sure why she died, but it feels like more often than not we're adding to the questions and not necessarily getting answers to them. And then number 3, while I typically enjoy the adult storyline a little bit more, it feels like we're a little bit aimless with the direction of the adult storylines. We just kind of have random events taking place here and there without much of a bigger picture available for us to see. Like this episode, for example. While it was fun and enjoyable to watch, we just kind of volunteered at a retirement home, not really much plot development with that. So it feels like more needs to really progress and have more of a direction across the board with the adult storyline of things. So then as far as a review score for this episode, I may let some people down here, but I'm going to go with a neutral rating. I was so close to saying positive, but really that trial ending and how frustrated I got with Shauna, I almost flipped entirely to saying negative, but I figured let's be realistic. Let's go neutral because I enjoyed most of the episode, but that last ending, I really didn't enjoy. I really hope they don't kill off the coach based off that trial, because if they do that route, I'm probably not going to wind up liking most of the teenager characters pretty much at all at this point. But as I said, despite that ending, I'm going to go with the neutral rating for this episode. A lot of great moments, just that ending was rough for me. Relating to New Blood, once again, kind of feels like the whole season of New Blood where it's like pretty good, but then the ending just kind of brought it entirely down. That's pretty much what happened in this specific episode. But what did you think? Were you a fan of this episode? What parts did you like or dislike? Do you have any theories on the cabin fire, Lottie's death, really any other mysteries here? Sound off on all things Yellowjackets down below in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to talk to you again soon.